Canceled, delayed flights are likely over July 4th holiday weekend. More than 2,000 flights delayed as holiday weekend kicks off. Almost 8,000 U.S. flights delayed or canceled due to severe storms. These were the headlines leading into the 4th of July weekend. And while that's not what you want to see before heading to the airport, knowing your passenger rights and having access to some travel protections can make a huge difference in your summer travel plans. Today we'll show you how to protect your summer vacation and why you might already have all you need.
Welcome to the Travel More podcast.
Each episode, we share custom itineraries, travel hacks, expert advice, and even stories of our past travel failures to help you level up your travel game.
I'm Shelly, a lover of plans, itineraries, and cheap flights. I'm an expert deal finder with one eye always on the budget.
And I'm Bruce, the improviser, ready to pick up where plans fail to turn letdowns into unexpected trip favorites. We're here to bust through barriers that stop you from making your travel dreams a reality.
So book that flight, buy the tickets, and say hello to your next adventure.
This is the Travel More podcast. Welcome back to summer school, and happy 4th of July to our listeners in the USA.
Woohoo! So honestly, we're laying low on this holiday. We're typically between trips, which is exactly where we are now. So we're kind of having a low-key celebration with family, but it's generally a really busy travel time.
Oh, yeah. Not just on the roads, but in the skies.
Oh, yeah. European travel this summer is like a record high or something. I just read it online. And so I feel like this episode is like right on track.
Yeah, we're totally rebounded and booming from COVID at this point.
Oh, yeah. Yes, for sure. In fact, it's above what it was in 2019, like before COVID even happened.
It's like peaking before. I think everyone is trying to travel as much as possible now, which is awesome.
Yeah, and honestly, we're in the same boat. We're just waiting a couple weeks. We're also going to Europe, so we're right along with you. So, before we get into kind of the air regulations and what you can expect for compensation and all of that mumbo jumbo, we do want to remind you that we have a giveaway coming up for an Intro to Travel Hacking book, First Class Travel on a Budget by Zachary Burr Abel, as well as our digital resources pack that will go to one lucky email subscriber.
So if you want to have a chance to win, make sure you join our email list before this Friday, July 7th at noon Eastern Standard Time, and that's when we'll be choosing our winner. So make sure you watch your email to see if you've won.
Woo! Okay, so these are short episodes, so we're just going to go right into our air regulations.
We're diving in deep.
Yeah. All right, so no one wants to hear your flight is canceled or delayed, but what can you do about it? Turns out you're not as out of luck as airlines would have you believe. Today we're going to do a quick overview of the protections you're entitled to as an airline passenger, as well as some that you may have that are hiding in your wallet already.
Ultimately, how do you get that money back? So, we're going to say it gets a little complicated, right? So we're going to try to keep it simple for now. But, unfortunately, if you find yourself in this situation, we do have some resources towards the end of the episode to help you out that are going to go a little bit beyond what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and we'll link a couple of things that we use to help us research in the show notes as well, if you really want to deep dive into this.
So the first thing we want you to know is that protections in the European Union are a lot stronger than the U.S., and that's great news if you're part of that record-breaking number of people traveling to Europe this summer, like us. But if you're traveling domestically, it might get a little harder. So we're going to start with the good news.
So in the EU, European Union, if your flight is canceled, delay, or you're bumped from an oversold flight, or your baggage delay and damage, you probably have a case for compensation. The only real exception here is going to be weather, and honestly, weather is an exception to pretty much everything we talk about in the whole time, except credit cards, which we'll get there in a little bit. But unfortunately, if the weather's the case of interruption, you don't really have a lot. But just because it's not required by an airline doesn't mean the airline won't try to help you out. So definitely always ask, even if it is weather related. But if it isn't weather related or any extraordinary circumstances like safety issues, you can count on the EU's regulation of EC 261. I hope you're writing that down to help you out.
Don't write it down.
If you really want to dig in.
So, essentially this regulation, it determines the amount of compensation based on the length of time you're delayed and how far you're traveling. And if you meet the criteria, you're entitled to a few things, which are going to be meals and refreshments during the delay, access to communications like, 2 phone calls and emails. And if overnight accommodations are necessary, they have to provide you with a hotel room and transportation to and from the airport.
And some of these compensation, like the money part that goes with this, can be up to $700. So it's definitely worth looking into if you feel like you're listening to this and you're like, wait a minute, that feels like something that happened to me. And the other good news is if you're thinking, this sounds like something that happened to me at Christmas, you're still good probably, because you have quite a while for most countries in the EU to actually to claim this.
That was surprising to me, because I thought you'd have to do, I don't know, like a week within your trip, but really it can go up to a year. I've seen some countries, I think, are 3 years.
I think I saw 6.
6?
Yeah, it's wild.
It's something to check out. So if this happened to you and you didn't get your compensation you deserved, definitely follow up.
You might as well look it up. And actually, we have a really cool tool for that at the end, so stick around. So yeah, good news over in the EU. So if your plans do include that European travel, you got at least a little bit on your side. Unfortunately, not so much if you're traveling domestically this year.
So in the United States, unfortunately, there's no federal law that mandates compensation for domestic flights in the U.S. But don't fear, because almost all major airlines do have policies to compensate you on delayed or canceled flights. And a big one in the U.S. is being denied boarding on overbooked flights.
This is actually new. I was just reading about this. So you can't be involuntarily bumped if you are sitting on the plane. So I guess it used to be that they could literally say, like, no, sir, you must leave the plane. But if you have scanned in, I've just read that it's I think, illegal. Unless, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was just reading a thing that it's illegal to take you off the plane involuntarily. But if you arrive at the airport late, like you're within an hour of your flight, you're out of luck. But if you've been sitting in the airport for 2 hours for your flight, and they involuntarily kick you off the flight, you are entitled to compensation for that. Usually, though, someone's going to take that. I mean,
I would take that's honestly a strategy. If you are someone who has a lot of flexibility and you get to one of those overbooked flights, they often start the bidding.
Best day ever.
Yeah, they'll compensate you. But really, in the U.S., there's not a lot of regulations. But the two things are being denied boarding on those overbooked flights or big delays like tarmac delays.
Yeah, and the tarmac delays really is just that they have to give you like a juice box. It's not
they have
great.
to give you like water.
Yeah,
basic necessity.
And they have to make sure your bathrooms stay open.
Yep.
So like basic human rights there.
Right.
But
so unfortunately, as a law, we don't have much going on here. But anyway, most major airlines, the big ones. So unfortunately, we're not looking at you, Spirit, Frontier, or Allegiant, all the budget ones. They're going to rebook you on a partner airline at no additional cost. And they'll cover food and accommodations on overnight delays. And
just to confirm, what we mean by major airlines, like Bruce just mentioned some that don't count, but some that do count are ones like JetBlue, Delta, United, all those like major airline brands. They partner a lot with other airlines. They're in these big partnerships. And so they'll book you. What he's just saying is they'll book you on like partner flights later in the day, usually for free.
So, you get what you pay for, and we've got our own kind of horror story about this. And honestly, I'm sure a lot of you out there do as well, and we'd love to hear them.
Yeah.
So, I know, now, don't get us wrong. Like, we'll book on budget airlines quite a bit. And I'm not someone out there who, like, hates budget airlines, because without them, prices wouldn't be competitively going down on major airlines.
Right.
But you get what you pay for. So, just an example, we were going to our annual Halloween Horror Nights at Orlando, Universal in Orlando.
Yeah, which means that we had a very slim
window
of opportunity, because we're both working full-time in school. So really it's like, it's a 3-day weekend. So like you're leaving Friday after school. We're like rushing to the airport, and then we have to come back Monday night so that we can go to school on Tuesday. So this is quick.
We're already pushing it. Yeah. And, we booked on Spirit at the time. Mm-hmm. And essentially we had a quick connector as well.
Yeah, in Fort Lauderdale, what a stupid connection.
I know. It's like an hour away from Orlando.
So close.
But what happened is the flight got bumped so far that we were going to miss our connecting flight.
By hours.
Yeah,
like, I think we left at like midnight.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
It was very late.
I know, like these delays, I'm pretty sure were due to weather across the country.
Yeah, but the thing about budget airlines, and this is two things to remember about them. One, they can't be booked on partner airlines like these other major ones. And also, they tend to get bumped to the bottom of the list when
that's right.
When spaces open up to take off.
They're the bottom of the totem pole, and the best they'll do often is just give you your money back and tell you go buy a ticket right now.
Yeah, for $1,000.
Right. So it's like, sure, you got that $100 ticket on Spirit, but then they can't help you out, and you're looking at an $800,000 ticket on another airline.
Crazy.
So anyway, our story goes, we get on the first flight, we get to Fort Lauderdale, and we decide to just get a hotel and drive to Orlando the next day.
Because it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive.
Right.
It's quick. And that was okay because they rebooked us. So it was a Spirit flight again. Obviously, it's just a connecting flight. And so they rebooked us on a flight to Orlando on Sunday. Mind you, this is Friday we're talking.
That was the best they could do.
Right, that's the best they could do. And that's the end of our trip. We were only going for like 2.5 days. So Sunday is like, that's it. Like we'd just be flying home 12 hours later. So that didn't work for us at all. So we rented a car. We had 3 people. We split the cost. It was fine. And actually, my little like woohoo to Spirit is that they did give us money for that flight that we missed.
They did.
And they, according to all things I've read today, they don't. But our personal experience is they gave us $60 a piece. Our tickets were only like $130 a piece to begin with.
Yeah, so ultimately...
Our round trip tickets too. So we missed one leg of a 3-leg flight, I guess. So because it was like nonstop on the way back, but there it had a layover. So we missed just one of those legs, and they gave us like half of our ticket cost back. But the only problem was we obviously were going to miss the flight on Sunday because we were driving to Orlando, and it was very unclear if they were going to cancel our returning flight because we missed the Sunday flight. So Bruce spent quite a bit of time on the phone with Spirit.
That was the thing.
That was the annoying part.
It took quite a bit of time to talk to their customer service, but in the end,
it all worked out.
The honestly, moral of the story here is one, ask.
Yeah.
Make sure you ask and push for what you know is yours, right? Because if the airline is delaying you or something happens, you got to ask. And 2, which we're going to get to a little bit later, if you have some other coverage, especially through credit cards, being able to get things like an accommodation that you didn't expect to have or a car rental could be covered.
Yeah. So the other part I want to tell you about what you will probably get out of these airlines, even though there's no U.S. air regulations, is they will also put you up in accommodations and cover any kind of food expenses through a voucher program. And this is, again, all these major airlines. So Spirit and Allegiant will also do that. They'll also cover the hotel expenses and overnight delay, but Frontier will give you a measly airport voucher for food.
Womp, womp.
Yeah, not great. No. Although, again, our personal experience is that the airlines tend to go above and beyond sometimes, so you might as well ask. But yeah, that's their official stance, is that all major carriers will put you up in a hotel for night, give you food vouchers, along with Spirit and Allegiant, but Frontier will just give you that voucher for airport food.
All right, so before we tell you some other more potentially safer ways to protect your travel plans, we want to mention the Montreal Convention, which is a law that does allow compensation for lost or damaged luggage when traveling internationally to 130 countries. And this does include some Asian countries, which we've left out from this explanation of benefits because they are also not required to compensate you.
Yeah, and there's some fringe kind of things. There's a big law for Brazil for some reason, specifically Brazil. So if you're going to Brazil, look up that one because it's a doozy, but it's good. It protects you quite a bit. But yeah, we just wanted to mention, in general, luggage has kind of its own thing, and you may find more and more protections for lost luggage than you will delayed
delays
trips.
And cancellation. Yeah. Even with credit cards and travel insurance, luggage is its own thing. Yeah,
there's actually a policy, I believe, with Delta that will give you points, like Delta points, if your luggage is more than 45 minutes delayed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty quick. So set your timer as soon as you set off the plane.
All right, so why don't we move on beyond relying on airline compensation departments or some of these laws and regulations we've talked about. Let's move on to whether or not you should get travel insurance, or potentially you may already be covered with your credit card.
Yeah, this is a credit card benefit that I never really thought about. When getting into the credit card points and miles game, it wasn't oh yay, credit card travel insurance. But actually, it's a pretty cool
benefit.
Yeah. Absolutely. It will definitely save you money on getting travel insurance in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you have the right credit card, which we're going to talk about a few right now, you probably don't need travel insurance, but it all comes down to your situation and where you're going, how you're going, when you're going, all that kind of stuff.
And also how much money you're spending. Like, if this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, you spent $10,000 to go to Antarctica or whatever, you're probably going to get travel insurance because you just never know.
That's
and
such
you
a different story.
Right, you want to get that canceled for any reason, and that will not come with any of these credit cards.
Yeah,
so if you just need to be able to get out if you need to, cancel for any reason, travel insurance is your only way. Otherwise, some of this credit card may cover it.
Yeah, definitely. That's the bottom line for, if you want to cancel at any time. But if you're taking just a domestic flight or something, and the important thing is your emergency fund. If you know you can kind of cover it that way, then you may not want to spend extra money. But really quick, we'll talk about some credit cards. And overall, out of the different families of cards, Chase is probably the most comprehensive when it comes to benefits. And just some things to think about, because we're not going to spend all day. We could spend multiple episodes about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Just some things to look at. There's a difference between, we talked about luggage and baggage claim and all that, but also trip delay versus trip interruption or cancellation.
Yeah.
So just make sure when you look at your cards, these are specifically different things. So delays, typically, there's a couple of things that are required of them. Well, first of all, let me say, if you're going to use the benefits at all, make sure that you've bought the tickets in part or in full for your travel.
With your credit card that you intend to use the insurance for.
Yeah, so you don't it's not just because I have a card in my wallet that I could say, hey, can I use the policy? You really have to be using that to buy the plane ticket or the hotel or whatever else it might be.
Which, before you go, now we're getting kind of into the mumbo jumbo of insurance talk, which please, please, please do not take our word 100% for it. Before you get on this major trip on a plane, look at the benefits of your credit cards and what they cover. Because also these things change all the time. By the time you listen to this, some of this may have adjusted slightly. But for the most part, these cards only need to be used in part to pay for your trip. So if you are doing something like booking with points, the fact that you have to pay the taxes and fees with your card will make you eligible to use the insurance. Again, please check with that before taking my word for it, because it definitely depends on the card as well. But just know that you could still be covered. You're probably still covered if you just use taxes and fees for your card and not the entire amount.
So, just to sum up, kind of like trip delay, typically you would have to be delayed for a certain amount of time before you'd qualify. And you're going to get a certain amount of money back for tickets that you can use towards expenses, like needing to get a hotel or getting some food or maybe a car rental.
And these are usually secondary to whatever the airline covers, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like you get it, and even though the airline is offering to cover your hotel, it's only going to cover things that wouldn't be covered by personal insurance, or if the airline is giving you vouchers.
Right. So just in general, what trip delay looks like is 6-ish hours to 12 hours, depending on the card. The nicer, higher annual fee cards are usually 6 hours, and the lower cost cards are usually closer to 12. But again, look up your specific card to see what that is. And it's usually $500 per ticket or per card member.
Right. So the other benefit to look at is going to be trip cancellation interruption. And the things to remember and to again, these are, everything we're telling you, the opinion of me and Shelly. These are things that, we're not 100% recommending for any of these companies.
Don't come after us.
Don't come after us. But again, we're just trying to give you some information. It's really important for you to look into what you've got and read the benefits. And honestly, the easiest thing to do that I've done in the past is just call. Yeah. I've called Capital One and Chase so many times, and Amex, and they're always, really quick to give me answers. But the big thing for trip cancellation interruption is really look at the specific losses and also the exclusions.
Yeah, so unlike trip delay, which is pretty standard across the board, these trip cancellation interruptions get a little more specific. Chase is the closest to what you'd find in like a typical travel insurance language. All the same kinds of things are usually covered, whether accidental injuries by you or your partner, and those kinds of things are typically what you'd see in regular travel insurance, and they're also at Chase. Capital One starts to get a little more specific. They don't cover as much as travel insurance or Chase, and Amex is kind of somewhere in the middle. So make sure that you know what would be covered in interruption or cancellation before you decide not to take out additional travel insurance. Because it just depends on what your situation is. A lot of them do cover weather, which I told you to come back to this one.
Yes.
Where the airlines won't cover weather, a lot of these insurances will. But this is like whether like a hurricane warning has been, announced and you're traveling in the exact time of the hurricane weather. Typically, you're able to get insurance for that kind of thing.
So one other tip, in addition to protecting yourself through getting some coverage or using your credit card to make sure you can get reimbursed in case this happens to you, is actually trying to prevent it to begin with. One of the best ways to do that is to try to fly out as early in the morning as possible. Because what happens when flights are delayed, there's kind of a ripple effect that affects all the other flights in the day.
Yeah, and there's a better chance that you can get booked on a partner later, even if it has to do with that company.
Yeah, don't be like us leaving at 9 o'clock on a Friday in a small airport.
If you can help it.
Yeah, if you can help it. So that's just one other tip in addition to getting, all these other coverages, knowing the regulations, and, just asking.
And then the last thing I wanted to say is the travel tool I mentioned in the beginning. If you want to check to see if your flight qualifies for compensation, if it was delayed or canceled, there's a cool tool that we'll link in the show notes called AirHelp, and they'll help file a claim for you too, but you have to fork over 35% of your earnings. Yeah. So you can also just use them as essentially a search tool for compensation and file it on your own if you need.
And while we hope this doesn't happen to you, it's good to know your rights if it does. So we hope you can avoid some headaches this summer and that you'll never need this episode. But if you're flying this summer, make sure to let us know about the ups and downs in our exclusive Facebook community, and the link is in the show notes.
Happy travels, everybody. See you next time.
See ya.
Did you know that every time you book a Disney or Universal vacation, you're paying for a service that you may not even be using?
Really?
That's right. Travel agent costs are added to your Disney or Universal vacation, whether you use one or not.
So you're telling me that I'm paying for something even though I'm not getting the help?
You got it. So next time you want to book a theme park vacation, make your money work for you. By booking with Magic Pass Travel, you'll get our expertise and years of experience without paying any extra and while supporting a small business.
Check out our show notes to find our contact information.
Can't wait to help you plan your next adventure.